Hello and welcome, my name is Andrew Peel, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to design this kitchen in Blender using the Home Builder library. I'm using the latest release of Home Builder, and I'm currently in the process of uploading the new version to my website, so look for the links in the description of the video. If you don't see the links, give it a day or two and check back because it takes me a bit to get everything uploaded. I do have the download available on my Discord channel, so if you want access to it now, join the Discord channel. But one thing you're going to notice while watching this video is creating designs like this is very easy to do using Home Builder. We're going to be using drag and drop to lay out the cabinets. Then I'm going to demonstrate how you can apply molding, change door styles, and change materials to update the look of the design. Now just a quick note, the molding feature is new and not quite 100% yet, so I'm going to show you how to use Blender's tools to modify the extrusion path, and I'll also show you how to change the materials on the wall to apply multiple materials to a single mesh. And this is one of the best things about using Blender for this type of work. You have so much more control and so many advanced features to update your design. But using the Home Builder library to generate the starting point is much quicker rather than modeling everything from scratch. And if you're using Blender in any professional way, you know being able to create your designs quicker is incredibly helpful. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so to start out, the first thing that I'm going to do is change some of the default sizes of the assets that we're going to be using. And so here in the Home Builder library, in the settings interface, we can change the different cabinet sizes and wall size and things like that. So I'm going to go and change the wall height to be 9 feet. Use the feet symbol. That'll automatically convert it to inches, so 108 inches. And then in the cabinet sizes, I'm going to make the tall cabinets pretty much take up the entire height of the wall, and so we're going to change this to 106. I'm going to leave 2 inches for crown molding that we'll add later, and then the upper cabinets we're going to change to 50 inches, and the blind cabinet widths I'm going to change the upper to be 48, so everything is the same there. And then for the height above floor for the upper cabinets, this is the distance from the floor to the top of the upper cabinet. I'm going to make this line up with the height of the upper. So we'll go and set this to 106 as well. And then we'll go ahead and start designing our room. So we're going to go and use the pick points asset. We'll drag this in, and then we're going to go ahead and select the first point of our wall. And here I'm going to go ahead and type in the dimension that I want to use. I'm going to use 180. And then we'll move our cursor this direction, and then I'm going to type in 250, hit enter. And there we have it. So we've got a very simple L-shaped room that we're going to start designing with. And now let's go ahead and get some cabinets placed in the corner. I like to kind of figure that area out first if I'm designing an L-shaped room. So if we go to the kitchens, here in the cabinets interface, I'm going to use a blind corner cabinet. And so if we drag this into the scene, you'll notice that it kind of snaps into this corner here. And I'm going to go and place it on this wall and just move my cursor to where you can see it snaps into the corner. So I'll go and place one of those there, and then we'll also use an upper blind cabinet as well. And we're just going to snap that right into place. And so now that we have that, we're going to place some cabinets right next to this. And so here, if we take one of these products, and if we put our cursor right over this blind panel, you can see that it's going to snap right next to it. And so we just click there, and it's not only going to position it correctly, but it's also going to add this filler piece. And you can always change the distance of that filler. If you right click and go to the cabinet prompts, here you can see that it's automatically added in a 2-inch filler. And that's going to be enough there. So we just want to make sure we have enough room for the doors to operate. They don't collide with each other. And so next, let's go ahead and add in a one door, one drawer unit. And again, I'll just put my cursor right over this blind section, and it will do the same thing. Place it in the correct spot. And next, I'm going to make it to where these cabinets line up with each other. And so I'm going to change the size of this product right here. And I'm going to do this in a front view. And here, if I right click and go to the prompts, there's various different ways of changing the location and size of these. But for this, I'm just going to go ahead and move this over. Let's see, it looks like 7 inches, and then increase the width. I'll just put +7. And you can see that has changed the size. And now these line up just like you would expect. And let's go ahead and place some tall cabinets here. I'm going to use this tall stacked product. So we'll go ahead and just drag this, put our cursor right here just so it places it right next to those cabinets. And then we're going to put a refrigerator here. So we'll go to our refrigerators library, and I'll just use the sample one for right now and snap it right into place. You can see this one automatically comes with a carcass that encases the refrigerator. You can always turn that off in the prompts. You can just set that off, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it like it is for now. And then let's go ahead and put one more tall cabinet next to this one. So we'll just drop it right there. And I'm going to change some of the sizes of the doors so they line up here in just a minute. But before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and continue placing products in our room. So I'm going to go ahead and place a 2-door, 2-drawer cabinet next to that. Then we'll place a drawer cabinet next to that. And then here I'm going to put a range. So we'll go to the ranges, and rather than using the sample one, if you have the extended asset library, you can switch your category right here and get access to all sorts of other ones. We'll just drag this right next to that. And here we don't have range hoods because range hoods are typically always right above a range or a cooktop. And so if you right click and access the prompts, you'll notice you can not only change the style of range that you're using just right from here rather than having to delete it and place another one, but you can also just easily add in a range hood. And since we're using a Thermador, we'll go ahead and use that same category and select this Thermador range hood. Okay, looks good. And now let's go ahead and continue to place some more cabinets. So drawer cabinet right next to there. And then we'll use a 2-door, 2-drawer base, and maybe finish up with one more right here. Okay, perfect. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and place some upper cabinets along this wall as well. And so we'll place a 2-door upper right next to that. Use the 1-door just to fit right in between there, and you can see there's enough space just to make that work. And here if we place another one, rather than trying to figure out the exact placement of where this needs to be, if you put your cursor over one of the base units, you'll see that it will snap to the center, and so it'll just center that right above that unit. Just makes it a little bit easier to position those the way that I want. So go and place some 2-door uppers, and there we have it. So before I start changing some of the options about these cabinets, I'm going to go ahead and place in a island that I've previously designed, and so this is available in the sample library. And this whole library is intended to allow you to create your own custom configurations of cabinets, and it's a bit of an advanced feature, so I'm going to go ahead and create some different tutorials that show you how to create your own custom products in this library. But for right now, I'm just going to go and drag this kitchen with a sink in it, and so we'll drag this in, and then here you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to just rotate this around. And so we'll just go and flip it around here and then place it right about there. And right now I kind of want this to be centered, just to make it look a little bit nicer. And there's a few different ways to change the positioning of this. Here if we go to the sidebar and access the assembly menu, every part of the Home Builder library is part of an assembly. And so this top right here is an assembly, and if we want to go up the hierarchy, we can use this option to select the parent assembly that's nested in. And so we can see that has the entire countertop, and so if we click again, that's part of the sink cabinet that we have in the center here. And then if we go one more time, that's the entire assembly. So this is the kitchen island with sink assembly. So once we have this selected, now we can position this to change where this is located and have a precise value that we want to locate this at. So it just kind of gives you some ways of positioning these types of assemblies. So now that we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and adjust some of the door sizes. So here if we select this unit and right click and access the prompts, here we can adjust the bottom cabinet height, and so you can always change where this is located. I'm just going to line this up with the refrigerator cabinet that we have right next to it, and then we'll do the same thing with this one here. Go ahead and just drop this down, and then I want to change the swing of these doors. I want the handle to be on the other side. So in the exterior options, here we can see we have the top and the bottom door, so we can just change both of these to be a right swing, and that makes it look nice and symmetrical the way that I want. Then here for the drawer cabinets, I want basically a consistent top drawer height along here. And so here if we access the prompts of this and go to the exterior options, here we can see the heights of the drawer fronts, and right now they're all equally calculated. If we uncheck one of these options and then type in the value, I know my top drawer front height is 6 inches, so we'll just type that in, and then we have to click the calculate drawer front heights, and that will just calculate the remaining drawer heights that we have. And so that's exactly what I want to see there. And then let's go ahead and adjust the same thing for this one. So we'll set this to be 6 inches, calculate the drawer front heights, and now we have this kind of consistent top drawer front height, which looks nice along here. One thing that I do want to change here in this blind corner unit, it's just a one door. We don't have a one door, one drawer blind corner cabinet in here, but you can change the exterior on any cabinet very easily. So if you go to the cabinet menu, or if you right click, you have these cabinet commands that you can use. And so here we have the option to change cabinet exterior. And so with that front selected there, we just select that, and then we can change the front that we want. So we use a one door, one drawer unit in here as well. You can see that swaps out. Everything looks like we want it to there. So now that we have that done, we have all sorts of different options that we can change about our design. We can change the material, we can change the cabinet fronts, we can add molding, we can change all sorts of different options. And so there's a few ways to do this. Here, if we go to the settings interface, we have the ability to adjust materials, add molding, change the cabinet fronts, change the hardware. And so we can use these to adjust our design. So first, let's go ahead and add some molding to our room. And here we can see our molding selection, so we can see all the different base molding that we have in the library. And if we select one of these, we can then assign it to the pointer. And so here we have the base molding, so we just click on that, and that will assign our current selection to this pointer. And maybe we want to change the light rail molding, so we'll go to the light rail category, and we'll go ahead and select one of these, and then click on that pointer. We can see that updates our information. And then when we want to assign molding to the room, all we do is click add molding to room, and then we have options to determine what we want to include. So I'll use base, crown, light rail. I'm not going to add crown molding to the walls in this design, but I will add base molding, and then we click OK. And it will take just a second to apply that molding. But one thing that we're going to notice is there's still some improvements that I need to make to this command. It doesn't do it perfectly, but I figured that right now I get you about 80% of the way there, and then you can make modifications just using Blender's functionality. And so here we can see that I'm not applying molding to the appliance cabinets yet, and there's some issues that will add returns when there doesn't need to be. And right now this is all figured out based on the finished end condition. And so if I would have selected this cabinet and went to the carcass and set the finished option and turned off left and right, and then here we can just rerun that same command, add molding to room, click OK. There it will, not make that return, but in most instances you're going to have to just kind of make some very quick modifications. And so if we select on one of these profiles, we can type tab to go into edit mode, and all we need to do is we can select the different points that this extrusion is made out of. And so here if we click on this back one and type X, we can delete that vertice. And so that gives us a really quick way just to get rid of those extra points. And we can also use the move tool and just move these around. Here I'm going to switch to vertex snapping, and then we're just going to snap it right to that other unit. So you can see how you can really quickly make modifications, and for the most part a lot of this, when you're doing a rendering, you're not going to see those additional points. But at some point we will be creating some reports that will give you the linear dimension of all the molding in the room and assign price values to that. And so here in a future release, we will have a lot of this information calculated 100% perfectly to where you don't have to make these modifications. But for now, you can just kind of clean up those profiles, and there we have it. Now we've got our design. Next, let's go and add in a floor to this room. If you click on any wall in your design and then right click, go to the wall prompts, here you can add in a floor, and that will just calculate the size of the room. Add that. You can also add in a quick room light, which this puts an area light in your design. And this isn't perfect lighting, but it actually does a pretty good job here. If we go into a rendered view, you can see it at least just gives us a really good idea of what the design looks like. And so here you can also change your texture size for your floor. And so if we right click, go to the floor prompts, here we can change the scale. So if we adjust the, and let's go and do this in material mode just so we can see a bit better what we're doing. So here you can adjust the Y and X scale of that just to make the scale of that texture, fit the room appropriately. So I think that looks pretty good for right now. And I don't really like this dark wood with the wood floors, and so I'm going to go and switch the materials here. So we go to our material interface, and there's a few different ways in this version to assign materials to your assets. So here you can always select your material. We're going to use just this high gloss white melamine for right now in this room. So you can just assign it to the pointers, and if you adjust this, then any new cabinet that you draw will use this information. But there's also another way to do this. If we go to the Home Builder library, here in the Materials tab, we can access the same library. So we have all the different categories, and again, if you're using the Extended Asset Library, you'll have a lot more options within here. But you just select the material, and then you can click Assign Material, and then just pick on any object that you want to change. So we'll just go and change one of these doors, and this interface will come up because there's multiple material slots assigned to this one object. And so right now we have 2 material slots, and if we want, we can just override that material, and that would make the change. But there's also this whole system of these material pointers that are set up to allow you to update a lot of different objects within the room. So here we have cabinet door surfaces and cabinet door edges. And so if you click Update All, that's going to update all of the cabinet door surfaces in our room. And then we'll also update all the cabinet door edges. So that looks good. And obviously there's still some more materials that we want to change. So let's go and assign this back wall here. And you can see this part has the cabinet interior surface, cabinet exposed edges, and cabinet exposed surfaces. And so we can just update all of those, and you can see that's updating more of the room. And then finally, let's go ahead and assign the molding, and we'll just go and update our molding pointer in the room. So now we have all white cabinetry in our design. Next, we might want a different door and drawer front style. Right now we just have this slab, which looks great, but let's go ahead and just switch to something else here. So we'll go to the fronts category, and again, if you have the Extended Asset Library, you'll have additional assets that you can work with. So we'll go ahead and use the raised panel, and if you wanted to, you can just update one single. So here with this selected, we can click Update Selected Front, and you can see that's updated our one front there. But if you want to update the entire room, you can just go to this interface and pretty much do the same thing. So here we can assign the pointers for base, tall, upper, and drawer fronts. And so we're going to go and use that raised panel door, and we'll select these and then update all the cabinet fronts in our design. And there we have it. So that's updated all of the fronts in our design, and we can maybe take a look at a rendered view of this. Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far here. One thing that I am noticing here is the location of these handles is a bit awkward. It's kind of right at the edge of this style for this front here. And so what we're going to do is, if we go to the library settings and go to the cabinet construction, we have this hardware option, which is going to be where the poles are located on the fronts. And so we have this horizontal location, which is basically the distance from the edge of the door to where this is located. And we can see that we're probably using a 2-inch style on this door style. So let's go ahead and change the horizontal location to be centered there. So we're going to change that to 1, and then click this refresh button, and you can see all of the poles have now jumped to where they've updated their location, and everything is how I want it to look there. Okay, so one of the last things that I want to do here is I want to add in a marble backsplash that matches the countertops that I'm using just on the section where there's cabinetry. And so I could obviously go to my material, go to the stone, select the Midnight Granite, and then assign that to the wall, but that will assign it to the entire wall. And you can create geometry and apply it to just specific parts of the mesh object. And so what we need to do is we need to edit the shape of this to add some geometry and create a new material slot and assign that geometry to that. So here, if we go to the edit wall shape command. And we're going to create a loop cut to where I just don't want this edge right here to be that stone material. So here I'm going to use the loop cut tool, and then if we hover over just the top edge and we click and drag, we can determine where we want that loop cut to be. And I'm just going to put it right at the edge of the cabinetry, and then we'll go back to selection, and then we'll go to face select, and here I can select just that one face. And if I drop down this material pointer list here, I can see right now I just have one material slot assigned, and right now the pointer that's assigned to that is the walls pointer. And I'm going to go and create a new one and then assign the face that I currently have selected to this new slot. So we assign that, and then here if we click in the pointers, we can select one of the pointers that we have in our design. So here we're going to go and assign this to the countertop surface, and then we can click update. And so now we can see that it's just updated that face that we have selected. I'm going to type tab to go out of edit mode. We can see that works just like we would expect. So I'm going to go and do the same thing to this wall right here. And we're going to go ahead and go to walls, edit wall shape. We'll use the loop cut tool. And sometimes it might be a little bit easier to see this in a wireframe mode. And so here, if we click, we can just drag this right to the edge that we want it to be. Go back to our selection mode and face select. And here we'll do this in material mode. So now we're going to select just this face. We're going to do the same thing. Add a new material slot. We're going to assign the face that we have selected to this material slot, and then assign it to the countertop surface and update the materials for this object. Great. So we'll type tab to exit edit mode right now. And now we just about have our layout all finished up. I am going to add a ceiling to this, and just to show you a different way of creating additional geometry, Blender has this really nice tool to just draw out shapes in your room. And so here I'm going to put my cursor right on the top and then just drag this out and then give the ceiling a little bit of thickness. And there we have our ceiling added to our design. And now we can just go through the process of adding decorations. And so here, each library has its own decorative category, and the sample library comes with some really basic assets that you can work with, but I also have some iMesh assets that this company provided to me, and they're really, really high quality assets. They look great, and so I'm going to go ahead and just drop in some of these. I'm going to go and put a bowl of apples on the countertop here. Maybe we'll add this glass set just kind of over here. Maybe someone's making some iced tea or something. And after you position these, you can always use Blender's move tools to just kind of position where this is, or you can use the rotation tool if you want to just change the rotation of these assets in here. And so we're just going to go ahead and use some of these. And you can also use hotkeys. So if I click this somewhere and assign it, I can always use R to rotate. So if I type R and then Z, that'll rotate it just along the countertop there. And then you can always, just use these widgets to position these assets where you want them. And so just going to drop these in, and here I'll use this tool. And then maybe we'll go ahead and put a set of mugs here just in the corner. And if we go to the room library, there's some other furniture items that you can find in here. And so I'm going to go to the iMesh category, and we'll use this stool here. We're just going to put some bar stools, and we'll go ahead and select here. We'll rotate this around, and rather than just dropping in multiple, you can always use the duplicate command. So if you use Alt-D, that will duplicate that object, and then you can use X or Y to kind of constrain it to the axis that you want to move it along. And so just go ahead and add in a few of these, maybe change the rotation just a little bit. And finally, let's go ahead and add in just some sort of a lighting feature here. So we'll use this pendant light, and so we'll drag this into the scene. And I'm just going to stick it right about there. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to do this in wireframe and add a top view just so you have this positioned correctly. Yeah, I kind of got this in a weird spot, so we're just going to move this to be centered right above our island here. I think that's looking pretty good. So let's just go ahead and go into a rendered view really quick just to see how things are looking. I'm also going to turn off the overlays for right now. And so now that we have this set up, we're going to go and do a final render of this. And you can use all of the standard Blender tools to create that rendering. Maybe one thing I am going to do is if I click on the room light that I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and go to the prompts and then just change this to be 150 just to increase the lighting a little bit. And again, this is a very simple lighting setup. You can always add in HDR lighting and different area lights that you want to use, but I'm just going to go and keep this simple for now. But one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the layout views to create a layout view to do a rendering. So here I'm just going to go ahead and position my rendering the way that I want and then click add render view, and here you can give it a name, and you can have as many different layout views that you want to create, which is just kind of an easy way to create different views and then render it all into a PDF that you can provide to your client. But what that does by creating that layout view is you can see it's created a new scene here. And if you wanted to, you can always go back to your model space and make whatever modifications and then come back to your layout that you have. But here we can see the border of the camera of what we're going to render. I'm going to change this a bit. So with the camera selected, if I right click, there's also camera properties that you can access. And here I'm going to change the rotation in X to be 90 and Y to be 0. Those are pretty common defaults that you want to use for just a nice straight rendering. And then I'm going to lock the camera to the view and then just kind of position this in a little bit better of a location. So here that's pretty much got the entire room framed in the way that I want. And then finally there's some options that you can specify for the layout that you're working with. A lot of these options are really going to be more if you're creating 2D orthographic views for like elevation and plan views, which I'll go over that in another video. But one thing I am going to turn off is the render lines. That's going to be the freestyle, which will show like dashed and just outlines of all the objects, which looks a little busy in a 3D view, but works really well when you're doing 2D orthographic views. And I'll go and turn on transparent background. And finally, if you wanted to, you can always add in a title block. And I'm going to create some tutorials on how to modify these title blocks, because you can have as many different styles of title blocks that you want. And here you can see if I click on any part of that title block and then right click, I can show the properties of that. And then here this allows me to adjust what information is actually displayed. And so I can change the name of the information that's in there. And so I'm just going to go and type this all in real quick. All right, so there I've updated the information and that's now displayed in our title block. And then we could either do just a standard Blender render at this point, or we can have it do the render and then automatically generate the views into a PDF. So if you had multiple views, it's nice to be able to send one file to your client that has all the information included. So I just have one view, but I'll go ahead and create the PDF for this. And once it's finished rendering, it will open up that PDF. And so here at this point, you can just save this and email it off to your client. And there's probably some, improvements that I can do if I spend a few more minutes on lighting and things like that. But you can see just with the default settings, you can get some really quick and great looking results. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in the next one.